If you work for the Catholic Church and want to avoid burnout, overcome parish dysfunctions, and put more souls in the pews, we're here to help. I'm Ty Hua, here with my co-host John Cons, and this is the Catholic Ministry Professionals Podcast, the show that provides leadership development for Catholic churches. Each week, you can expect engaging discussions, expert interviews, and actionable advice to help you move Jesus' mission forward in your parish. Today is the second part of a three-part series on how to work as a team. John, how are you?
I'm on top of the world. Today is a good day. I've got time with you here where we're going to talk about the important things of ministry and obviously growing the kingdom, which is the most important thing in the world. And then later, I'm going golfing.
It is
What
right and just.
it is right and just, yeah. I almost feel like I deserve it today, almost. But it'll be good to be outside, swing the clubs.
Yeah, just a shout out to any of the fellow CMPs that golf that needs a third and a fourth person in their foursome to golf in any scramble event or just to enjoy being outdoors and drinking beverages, alcoholic or not. Give us a call at
Or you can email us at CatholicMenPros@gmail.com. We'd love to go golfing with you.
yeah, and discuss the the things that we discuss on the podcast. Sounds really
Absolutely.
great in a golf cart.
Absolutely. The acoustics out there are ideal for that conversation.
Yeah,
But
speaking of conversations, John, the second part of this three-part series on working as a team. What do you got for us?
yeah, absolutely. So we thought we'd kind of break it down and talk about how do we work more as a team. So many of our episodes are about the fact that we need to be more intentional about being a team. But I don't know that we've broken it down before to say, well, this is how you can begin moving your staff, your parish staff, towards more of a team dynamic. And so if you often feel like you're just kind of working on the important things alone, or you feel like nothing ever gets better, we maybe talk about as a team, hey, here's something we need to do better, but it never gets better. Or you feel like you're working day in and day out and you're not sure what you're getting done. Like this is a good episode for you. This is a good series for you. And so, episode 72, last week, we talked about why it's important to work as a team. We talked about how that old African proverb, right? If you want to go fast, you go alone. If you want to go far, you go together. And eventually, and also too, we talked a little bit about three main benefits of working as a team, which is that you get a unity of mission and vision. You get more clarity in your work, more purpose in your work. And finally, you get that community of support that so many of us are desiring. And you find it in the people that are with you every day. That's the value. Today, we're going to look after why it's important to work as a team. Today, we're looking at how you build rapport as a team. How do you build that team dynamic without necessarily having to spend or create a new budget item for all this team training? What are some things you can do right now as a team to begin growing together? And then finally, next week, we'll talk about how you're going to get stuff done as a team. So that's your little roadmap of where we are, where we've been, where we are, and where we're going. So today, how do you build that rapport? How do you build that team dynamic? And I want to break apart 5 specific questions that you can discuss as a team that'll help you to begin building again that team dynamic. And honestly, I believe if you stick through the episode, that 5th question, if that's the only one you take from today, I believe that will transform your team dynamic. It'll help everybody to begin seeing how we all work together towards this common goal if you do it at your weekly meetings. And it'll help you to become stronger as individuals and ultimately to build trust as a team. Ty, how important is trust to building a successful team?
I'd say it's number one, maybe number two. It's a close. If it's a number two, it's a close number two because if you don't trust the people that you work around, you have a very, very toxic work environment. If you can't trust that, in order for you to get this objective done or this project done, that you need to rely on somebody else. What happens is you're going to micromanage them, which breeds more of that. I don't trust you, or you don't trust me, so therefore I don't trust you, and it can get very, very dicey. It'll get very toxic, which we've mentioned that several times, and maybe that's another podcast topic. But if you don't trust the people working around you to get your job done, you're not going to get it done. Not very effectively, anyways. Right? Imagine playing on a baseball team where you're the shortstop, and you can field the ball, you know you can throw it to first base to get an out, but you're like, "Man, I know this guy on first base just he won't catch the ball." So that affects how you do your job. That affects how you deliver on the projects or the things that you're supposed to deliver on. So trust is so important.
Yeah, I don't think anything corrodes team efficiency, team effectiveness as much as trust. I really I would go on a limb and say that. I would also say on the other side though, the flip side is nothing nothing helps a team to operate more efficiently and effectively than trusting one another to do their part, to carry their side of the task, to do that. And we see that play out right in baseball and sports. I even think about it in terms of if you're raising children and but you need to use daycare or something like that, if you need to be able to give more to work or you need to be able to just be have time to get some things done at home and you need babysitters, like I am not for many of us our ministry, it's kind of our baby, it's something we've poured our hearts and souls into. I'm not going to hand you my baby if I can't trust that you understand one, the gift you've been given, right? You understand that this is a gift, this is a privilege for you to be able to take on this task, but also that we have a common desire for this to flourish, right? I'm not going to hand you my child if you're not interested in their flourishing. That's just not going to happen. So this trust is integral to being able to build an effective, efficient team that works hard towards a common goal, and it makes sure that we do that. So let's dive into these 5 questions, realizing that our goal with these questions is to build trust so that we can build a stronger team, and realizing that these are all a part of that. And you're going to see how it kind of plays out and teases out that ability to trust one another by walking through these questions. And so the first of these questions is to have that conversation with your team about why are we here, right? And I can think you can even just walk into a team meeting and say, hey, let's talk about why we're here. And you're going to frame it around mission, understanding like what is the mission? That's why we're here. But that's the conversation you want to have because you want each team member to have the opportunity to articulate why they are here. Like why are you here working in the parish? And to be able to try and have that conversation so that everybody can contribute to it with the goal of this question being to refine it down to one sentence, one statement that really encapsulates the entire team's why, the entire staff's why, that we can all agree, like, hey, this is why we are here. And then you can take it, you can reflect on the Great Commission, of course, from Matthew. But I would say like the caveat to this is if you're having this conversation and someone can't get past, well, I'm here because I want to get paid, right? I'm here to do a job that's gonna be telling for you, right? It's really gonna tell you like, okay, these people are here for the right reasons, and maybe this one person on the team doesn't understand why we're here, and maybe even you get to a point where you understand that maybe they shouldn't be on this team anymore. But what it does is it gives everybody a mission that they agree to, like, yeah, this is at the core of why we show up to work. The second then, I think we can move on to the second question. That's one that frames everybody around kind of this central mission, the central vision. And stemming from that, then I think you can evolve that conversation more, right? Now that everybody understands what the mission is, to ask this question, how does your work contribute to the mission? How does it contribute to the mission? Because what this does is it can break down a lot of barriers that happen. Suddenly, you might have someone on your team that they they understand how their work contributes to the mission, but they always seem to be focused on the wrong things in your mind. But when you give them a chance to articulate, hey, I do this thing because it helps me to do this mission that we just talked about in a better way. Suddenly it breaks down those barriers. And instead of saying like the finance person can say, hey, this is why I think our receipts are so important, why I ask all of you to bring in the receipts, because I see my responsibility to steward the gifts that people are given for the mission. This is why Father, I'm always hounding you to get signatures on everything because I need you to be able to do this. So we are all held accountable to this stewardship. You can suddenly understand, like, say the custodian's coming and he's always hounding you about the way you're filling out your forms and the timeline that you're doing and stuff. He says, hey, I've got this building and I see a great responsibility because God has given me this church and I try to take care of it as best as I can, this building that honors him, and I really want to do that. Suddenly now you're breaking down barriers, you're seeing into the other person's heart. You also have the opportunity to share for yourself, hey, this is how my work contributes to the mission of the church, And you now see yourselves not as separate silos, separate rooms, separate parts, but as contributing members of one body working towards this one goal. And so I think that can break down a lot of barriers for you. And it also too, if somebody isn't able to articulate how they fit to the mission, you can help them to understand, like, actually, I see when you do this, this really does contribute to the mission. So now they see their role with greater clarity. It's now infused with divine purpose, so that every day they can show up knowing, like, oh, I am doing the Lord's work and it is contributing. So it allows you to naturally, it creates natural opportunities to build one another up, but also to tear barriers down. This third question, which I kind of stole from our episode with Emily Leadham a few episodes back, we had her on to talk about um, leadership focused development on helping to people to become better leaders, strengths based leadership, and she threw this out as a workshop for one of her staff members, and I think it's really a powerful question. Is to consider, okay, if there was any one type of work that you wish you could do here, what would it be? Right? Give your team members to really think about, okay, where is my desire, and maybe even a natural desire that God has placed on my heart, work that I desire to do, and what would it look like for me to be able to do that in the parish? What that can do, so many frustrations that we hear are from professionals that want to advance in their careers, they want to grow their jobs as they grow, and they're not able to do that. Having this question, having an opportunity to discuss this question with your team gives you as the leader an opportunity to say, oh, this person desires this, we actually have a need for it, and it would kind of fill their tank, it would fill their cup, it would allow them to give in a way that God is calling them to give, and it doesn't require bringing in a new person and training them in a new thing. They're already here, they already desire it. It also creates a working dynamic, a leadership development dynamic between the leaders and the team members, where now suddenly they can see, um, they can kind of see a future for their position, and we can intentionally build that direction as our Catholic ministry professionals grow in their skills and abilities. Now they maybe have an avenue for utilizing them in the parish in a fuller way, and it edifies them. It gives them, it really edifies them in their work. It allows them to feel like they're contributing in a full way with their skills and their desires fully activated, and it's kind of future focused. It allows us to intentionally go somewhere, with our jobs, with our careers, with our ministries, with our parishes. Number four, the fourth question is just to ask, what are your strengths? And I think you can do that off the cuff. I also think this is a good time to bring up that there are all kinds of leadership development quizzes out there. Ty, what are some of your favorite leadership development quizzes?
I like the 16 personalities. That's
Why is that?
probably because it has more than just like your stock 4
Mm.
results. Like you're not pigeonholing anybody into any like one of the 4. This has obviously 4 times is that, so 16 of them. I just feel like it gives the person that is reviewing those personality types a better sense of who they're working with, right? So there's sometimes it's like, yeah, there's 4 of them, but they're 2 of the 4. So it's like, how do I deal with that? Where if you have more of a wide swath of personalities, it's just easier to deal with. So 16 personalities is a good one that I use.
Yeah, and I think that you nailed that on the head. Is that the purpose of these? Whichever one you go with, it's not so others can know you better. That's valuable, but ultimately, you as an individual to be able to know the other person better allows you to communicate more effectively with that person. So you see maybe a little bit better how they prefer to give, how they prefer to receive feedback. So you know when they're coming in, they're real blunt with you. It's not because they hate you or they're attacking you. This is just how they communicate. Like, hey, this is the important thing I want you to know, and they're just communicating. So you don't have to waste your time being hurt. This is like a part of their personality, and that's not a bad thing. That's a good thing. Also, maybe even though they're really blunt in their delivery, maybe they don't want you being so blunt right back at them. And so it just allows you to communicate efficiently in a way that overcomes differences in personalities, that kind of bridges that gap in differences. And again, there's a bunch of them, and I think over time, try several of them, and over time, what you're really doing is giving yourself tools for communication, tools for interaction, so that you have vernacular to be able to apply in situations, and to be able to overcome some of those basic stumbling blocks that just happen when multiple personalities are working together on one team.
That's a good point. I will give this bonus tip. Like, listen to your people, how they tell you they would prefer feedback, but also keep trying different things. I had one guy, we actually mentioned him in a conversation before this, but he'd tell me, "Oh, I'm a military guy. Just give it to me straight." Right? And then I give it to him straight, and all of a sudden he would be offended. Like, his feelings were hurt, his production would go down. There were times where he went to my boss to say, "Hey, Ty's mean." I'm just like, "I'm not mean. You said you're a military guy. You wanted that direct feedback, and I gave it to you. Here's what really happened." He did serve in the military, and I thank him for his services, but that is not how he responds the best, as far as giving feedback. How he wanted feedback was a compliment sandwich, right? Start with a compliment. "Hey, you're doing a great job, but here's where we can improve," right? Give the feedback, and then end it with a, "But I think you're doing a really good job." Like, that's how he wanted feedback. That's not how military men, and I've been surrounded by a lot of military guys that's just like, "Give it to me straight, cut the BS, like, let's tell me what you gotta tell me and move on with our lives," right? That's to me, that's what the military mindset is. How do I need to adjust so that we are on course? So, listen to your people. I get that, like, that's important, but also pay attention, right? Because some people have this idea of what they actually are, but in reality, that's not what they want, right? So
Mhm.
if he had just said, "Hey, I receive feedback, but I'm very particular on how I get it," um, and then obviously, I would have adjusted sooner, and my boss wouldn't have said, "Hey, Ty, we got to have a conversation about how you're giving feedback to this person because they're offended and they're borderline going to go to HR."
That's really important. And I would also I want to reiterate, and we say this all the time. This isn't about manipulating people. This is about seeing the individual and responding to that individual. And that is so important because none of this happens without building real relationships. And real relationships don't happen if you don't take the time to consider the other person, right? The classic the five love languages. It's more important for you to understand how your spouse their receives love, how they best receive love from you than it is about the way that you prefer to give, right? So, if they're not a physical touch person, but you're a physical touch person, like that's an obvious thing. This is just respecting the individual in front of you enough to cultivate a real relationship with them, to pay attention to them and respond to who they actually are, not who they think they are, and not necessarily who you think they are, but who they really are in real life. And that's any relationship up and down the board. And so yeah, that's an awesome little tidbit there. That's an awesome anecdote to add to that. Then here's the fifth question. And like I said, I think that this question in its own is is a master class in how to build a team dynamic. And if you did this every week, just as a part of your weekly meetings, could transform the whole dynamic of your team over time. And the question is for everybody, for you to ask them and give everybody the opportunity to respond to this, but to say, hey, what do you need from the team in order to be more successful in your role, specifically with this week or this thing that you have going on right now? Now, the rule is if someone asks you for help, then you say yes and you need to follow up, right? Because if you ask that question but you don't have any intention to follow through, that's going to hurt. So someone might say, "Hey, Father, I need to meet with you right after this because I need your signatures, and I've been trying to get you all week, and you've been, you had a funeral and you had all these other things going on. That's okay, but I need it right now." Okay, great. I need that. Maybe the religious ed director is, well, I've got a bajillion copies that I need to make. And I'm kind of maxed for time because does anybody have time to make copies? Or maybe the front office person then says, yeah, I've got time. I can run copies for you all day, in between things. So that takes a huge piece off their plate. What this does is it opens up that conversation for the team to begin functioning and seeing each other as as partners in this one great endeavor, and realizing that just because you're religious ed doesn't mean that I can't help you when you need help. And all you have to do is ask. So it opens up that vulnerability to ask for help. And it also creates that opportunity for someone to follow through. That builds trust, and it's going to happen naturally. And the thing is, you work together. Unless someone's a real and like actual jerk on your team, they're going to want to help one another. They're going to be willing to help one another, and they're going to realize, yeah, I've got time to do this. It's probably only going to take 20 minutes anyway. I can do it for you. And then that's going to build that dynamic together. And if you do that again, like I said, week after week, you don't need to have like strategic meetings to plan out something. They're just doing it as they go. Over time, this is going to create new habits, new pathways, new ways of collaboration and communication where people might even start doing those things outside of the meeting just to say, hey, I've got this. They pop into someone else's room? Hey, can you help me with this real quick? And they might say, yes, yeah, I got time to do that. And I really think, again, over time, this is going to be a real substantial way to build trust and to build that team dynamic. What do you think of that, Ty? That last one there?
I like it. There, especially with the person that isn't typically helping, just make sure you follow up, right? Like
Mhm.
if you're gonna offer it up, right? If you're gonna offer that question, make sure you follow up. If you are going to put yourself out there, don't just do it for like showmanship. Like, oh, I'm a team
Mhm.
player, but then you're this person that's supposed to get copies done today. It's like at the end of the day, they're like, hey, where are those copies? Oh shoot, I didn't. Yeah, I didn't do that.
Yeah, no one person on the team is the one person that's too busy to help anyone else. No one
Right.
is. Like that's got to be a core rule. Again, yeah, if somebody asks you for help or is asking for help and you say yes, you need to follow up. You're taking responsibility. That's just being an adult. That's all that is being a responsible adult. Eh, a couple other things just to kind of add and round out the conversation, right? We put out these 5 questions. These aren't one and done conversations. I see this as an ongoing, if you do these 5 questions as an ongoing development exercise, that's when they will be most effective. And so I would even say the first 4 questions, first 4 questions, why are we here? How does your work contribute to the mission? Is there any work you'd like to do here and what would it be? And then the fourth one, what are your strengths? I think if you do those 4 quarterly, right? So that's tackle one of those questions, set aside a half an hour or an hour at one of your normal team meetings just to say, hey, we're going to talk about this. Schedule those out for the year once every 3 months so you get all 4 of those in. I think that's a good rhythm just to continually keep us thinking about the the development of our staff, the development of ourselves as individuals and as professionals, and then to take that fifth one and do that every week just as a regular exercise. Hey, is there anything that you need from the team in order to get done the things that you need to get done to be more successful, to leverage the mission forward? Is there anything you need from us this week? And give people a chance to voice those. I think between those 5, you're going to have a really good rhythm started and building trust, but also then a good rhythm of personal intentional growth and development, like looking at myself and how I apply myself here and doing that better and better. I think you schedule those out for the year, and you're going to be surprised how that begins to transform the dynamic of your team.
I think on a personal note too, John, know thyself, right? So if you're on this team, you should start your day, well, besides prayer and reading scripture, but after that, when you start your work day, you should remind yourself like why you're here. This isn't just another secular job. Go through those 4 questions to begin your day to remind yourself of the importance of the standard that you're setting for the day, because the little things that you do throughout the day add up to either a really good day, a really good week, or man, I got so busy that I didn't get anything done. Or I don't know what happened today. Like it just got away from me. I got caught up in the whirlwind. So we have to stay focused. And at the beginning of every day is a good time to focus in on what we're trying to do.
Yeah, and if you're listening to this podcast right now and you're really interested in getting your team started, and you've got the ability to say so or would like to offer it, we'd love to come in and do a workshop with you, a half day or a full day workshop, just to kind of like get your team kicked off in the right direction and help you get those things scheduled out and planned in so you can say from the top down, hey, we want to be intentional about working together as a team. So if you're interested in a half day or a full day workshop, you can email us at catholicmenpros@gmail.com, and we get that conversation started and try to get out there. And with that, I think it's time for the devil's advocate. Dun dun.
Well, John, I get this idea of you want to go fast, do it yourself, and if you want to go far, do it together. But what if there are people on the team that are not interested in going further? They're just here to collect a paycheck. They just don't care about the team dynamic. What say you?
Yeah, we talked about this last week, and I do think this is going to be the thing that most people listening to this episode are going to feel is like, yes, I'm interested, I want this, but I'm still the only person who's having this conversation, who's curious about it. But yeah, I get it. I do think that it's worth revisiting. I think this is the same thing that's going to happen every week. Is someone's go, oh, I love this. Nobody else is interested. So maybe you can't get traction to do this in a team meeting at this point. Maybe you can't. But I want you to consider again that last question, and this was our actionable item from last week. That last question is there anything that you need from us to be able to do your job better? You could still go, even if you can't do it at a team meeting, you can go into each team member's office or pick that one person that always seems too busy and just ask them these questions off the cuff. Any one of them. "Hey, why do you see that you're here?" And I don't think you need any preparatory conversation and any work in advance to do this. I think you could plop down, like, you guys know each other. You should be comfortable around each other to chat. Just pop in and say, "Hey, is now a bad time to chat?" And they say, "Well, maybe it is." And then you go, "Okay, I'm just gonna walk away." But they might also say, "No, now's not a bad time to chat." And just say, "Well, I was wondering this. I've been thinking about this in my own office. Is it why do you like if you had to put it into words, why are we here?" Or, you know, how do you see like the work that you do? Like, how do you see that it contributes to the mission of the church? You say, hey, what are what do you see as your strengths? How do you get to use them in the office? You know, what is it that if there was anything that you could do here, is there something else? And I think if you just walk through these questions with individuals, you'd be surprised how that's going to build trust. So begin to percolate different conversations around the periphery. And over time, those are going to bubble over into the team meetings, or at least over time, if you brought it up in a team meeting, you say, yeah, we kind of talked about that. And it might just spark a little more conversation on a deeper level. So I wouldn't be afraid. Yes, maybe you're the only one who's interested in it at this point. Begin to sow those seeds, begin to cultivate that soil with individuals. And as you begin to open up that conversation, you'll be surprised how it bubbles over into the day-to-day work that you do, how it begins to bubble over into the meetings, and how it can prep everybody to have that conversation on a greater level.
Mm, so good.
And said, of course, we never want to leave you without something that you can do to take action on starting today. And so, an actionable step for you is just to start those conversations about building stronger team dynamics. So, you can pop into team members' offices, kind of like we just said. Just start popping in offices, having these 5 questions kind of at the ready, and just riffing off them. Start to cultivate that. So, I think that's a great way to get this work started. But also, if you wanna, maybe leverage it forward a little quicker, be more intentional about it, schedule a meeting with your pastor, or send him this podcast and just say, "Hey, I'd really like for you to listen to this, and I would like to talk about doing this more intentionally as a team, having these bigger questions be a core part of the way that we operate or the way we be a regular part of our meeting schedule." Better yet, just type the questions up and bring them to your next meeting and say, "Hey, I have something I'd like to add to the agenda." Just rip the band-aid off and get the dysfunction out there in the open so you guys can talk about it. And if they ask you, "Hey, why do you want to talk about this?" You just mention those 3 benefits that we talked about in the last episode. Those 3 benefits that if you begin to work better as a team, you're going to have more unity of mission. You're going to have clarity of work and purpose, and you're going to have a greater community of support for one another as you do the day in and the day out of your job. So go ahead, rip that band-aid off, just bring it in. All right. And with that, I want to thank you for listening to the Catholic Ministry Professionals podcast. If you want to transform your parish through your work, but you're not sure where to start, you can download our free parish health assessment at catholicminpros.com/free assessment. It's just 36 questions. It only takes about 5 minutes. And afterward, you're going to have a color-coded picture of your parish's health that you can use to fuel better conversations, prioritize better work, and become a better leader. As always, you can email us at catholicminpros@gmail.com to share feedback. And finally, don't forget to text this episode to a priest or a friend in ministry that could benefit from it.
And with that, we'll see you in the vineyard.